From scrubbing floors as a servant to buying her father's house, this is not just a story, it's a slap to every person who gave up on her. A little girl lived with her father after her mother passed away. Life was quiet, but full of love. Her father was her world, always kind, always there. They shared meals, laughed together, and she felt safe in his arms. Everything felt simple and warm. But then, things began to change. Her father married another woman. At first, the woman seemed nice. She smiled a lot and pretended to care. The girl wanted to believe it, hoping life would stay happy. But slowly, things started to feel wrong. The woman began to act differently when the father wasn't around. She said mean things in a soft voice and gave cold looks that made the girl feel small. Little by little, the father changed too. He didn't smile the same way anymore. He stopped talking as much and seemed far away, even when sitting in the same room. The warmth in their home faded. The girl, who once felt like the most loved person in the world, now felt like a guest in her own house. Her father didn't laugh with her, didn't notice her tears, and the gentle man she knew was slipping away. She felt confused, hurt, and completely alone. At first, it started with little things. The stepmother would ask the girl to help with simple chores, washing a few dishes, sweeping the floor, folding clothes. The girl didn't mind. She thought it was normal. She wanted to be helpful, but slowly, those little chores turned into big ones. She was cleaning the whole house, cooking meals, washing everyone's clothes, and doing everything from morning to night. While other kids were going to school, playing with their friends, and laughing outside, she was inside scrubbing floors with her tiny hands. Her books were taken away, her toys disappeared. She was told not to talk to anyone, no phone, no friends, no joy, just work. The stepmother's sweet face was gone. Now, she barked orders, scolded for no reason, and looked at the girl like she was nothing. The girl couldn't understand how her life changed so fast. Every time she tried to tell her father, he looked away. He didn't listen. He didn't speak up for her. He just sat quietly, acting like he didn't see what was happening. The girl's heart broke a little more every day. She missed the father who used to hold her hand, the one who once said she was his whole world. Now he barely looked at her. Days felt like years. Her small feet hurt from standing too long. Her back ached, but worse than the pain in her body was the pain in her heart. She felt invisible, like she didn't belong. She cried alone at night, whispering to her pillow, asking why this was happening. But no answer came. No one knocked on the door to help her. No one asked where she went. The world outside forgot her, and deep inside, she started to understand a sad truth. No one was coming to save her. She had to survive on her own. One cold night, everything changed forever. The girl had just finished her long list of chores and was sitting quietly in the corner, too tired to even cry. Suddenly, the stepmother stormed into the room, holding some missing money in her hand and pointing her finger. She shouted that the girl had stolen it. The girl's heart dropped. She hadn't taken anything. She tried to speak, tried to explain, but the stepmother didn't let her talk. Her voice was drowned by angry words and cruel lies. The noise brought her father into the room. For a brief second, the girl thought he would protect her, that he'd look into her eyes and see the truth. But instead, he listened only to his wife. He didn't ask questions. He didn't look at her like a father. He looked at her like a stranger. Then, something happened that shattered her whole world. Her father yelled, "You're not my daughter anymore!" The words hit her like a storm. Her legs shook. Her heart felt like it stopped. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't believe this was real. Tears rolled down her face, but no one cared. The stepmother gave a cold smile, proud of what she had done. The girl begged her father with her eyes, hoping he would change his mind, but he turned away. Just like that, the only person she had in the world pushed her away. That night, with nothing but the clothes on her back, she was thrown out of the house. No bag, no food, no plan. Just a 12-year-old girl, standing in the dark, not knowing where to go. Her feet were bare. Her heart was broken, and for the first time in her life, she truly felt alone. After being thrown out, the girl thought her pain had reached its limit, but life had more struggles waiting. The stepmother, pretending to help, secretly arranged for her to be sent far away to a big, rich family's house. The people there didn't know her story. To them, she was just a maid, a servant, a little girl sent to work like an adult. When she arrived, no one asked her name or how she felt. They just handed her a broom and told her to start cleaning. Every morning, she had to wake up before the sun. While the city was still sleeping, she was already washing floors, scrubbing toilets, and running around the house. She didn't have a bed, just a thin mat on the cold kitchen floor. At night, when her tired body wanted to rest, her bones ached, but she had no choice but to sleep there, in silence, surrounded by darkness. Her meals were leftovers, cold, small scraps after everyone else had eaten. Sometimes it wasn't enough, but she never complained. She didn't go to school. She didn't have toys or books. She didn't hear kind words. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Her hands became rough, her back bent from carrying heavy buckets. Her eyes no longer sparkled like before, but something deep inside her refused to break. She had a quiet fire inside her heart. At night, when everyone slept, she would stare at the ceiling and whisper to herself, "One day, I'll get out. One day, I'll become someone." She didn't know how or when, but she believed it. That small hope kept her going. No matter how hard the day was, no matter how hungry or tired she felt, she didn't give up. Every tear she wiped away in the dark made her stronger. Every harsh word she heard made her more determined. She wasn't just cleaning floors. She was building strength, learning survival, preparing for the life she promised herself. And that promise, whispered in the silence of the night, became her reason to keep breathing, to keep dreaming. In the big house where she worked every day like a machine, something unexpected happened. One day, while cleaning the upstairs rooms, she found a small room she had never noticed before. It was quiet and dusty, and inside were shelves full of books. It was a little library, hidden like a secret treasure. Her eyes lit up. She had missed books so much. They reminded her of the days when she was just a normal little girl with dreams, not a servant. She stood there for a long time, touching the covers, looking at the titles. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her heart beat fast, afraid someone would come and yell at her, but no one did. That night, when everyone had gone to sleep and the house was dark and still, she tiptoed back into the library. She picked up a book and sat quietly on the floor. The pages felt like magic. The words took her far away from her pain, her hunger, her sadness. In those pages, she found stories of brave girls, smart women, kind people, and big dreams. She began going there every night, reading in secret with the help of a tiny flashlight she found in the storage room. It became her escape. When her hands were sore and her feet ached, the books gave her comfort. They became her teachers, her friends, her world. She learned about the outside world, about business, science, kindness, and hope. She didn't understand everything at first, but she kept reading, learning slowly, one page at a time. Every time she read something new, her dreams grew a little bigger. She started to wonder, what if I could have a different life? What if I could learn enough to leave this place? What if I could buy my freedom? These thoughts scared her, but they also gave her strength. She started to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life didn't have to stay like this forever. She still worked all day, still slept on the cold floor, still ate the same scraps. But inside her heart, something had changed. She had a secret now, a secret spark, a small light that no one could see, but it was burning brightly in her soul. That light gave her the power to dream again, not just to survive, but to grow. She didn't have money, or family, or help, but she had books, and a belief that her story was not over. She promised herself that one day she would not only leave this house, she would rise. She would be more than just a maid. She would become someone, and no one, not even the people who tried to break her, could take that dream away. Years passed quietly. She was no longer the scared little girl who cried herself to sleep every night. She had grown, not just in age, but in strength. She still worked every day, cleaning, cooking, serving, but her mind was always learning, always planning. Every free moment she got, she returned to the tiny library. She read more, learned faster, and wrote down important things she wanted to remember. One day, while cleaning an old drawer, she found a broken phone. It didn't work well, and the screen had cracks, but she was patient. After some time and a bit of help from a kind driver in the house, she got it working just enough to connect to the internet. That small, half-broken phone became her window to the world. Late at night, when the house was asleep, she watched free tutorials and videos. She learned how to write emails, how to design simple pictures, how to use social media, and even how to sell things online. She used her free time to make small handmade items, simple jewelry, bookmarks, drawings, and posted them secretly with the help of free apps. Slowly, people started noticing her talent, her eye for detail, her creativity. It all shined through her tiny screen. Orders started coming in, little by little. She would hide the money she earned in a small box under her bed, saving every single coin like it was gold. She didn't spend anything on herself, not even candy. Her dream was bigger. One day, something unexpected happened. A woman who had bought one of her handmade pieces asked to meet her. The girl was scared at first, but agreed. That woman, kind and gentle, listened to her story. She didn't laugh or feel sorry. Instead, she offered to help. She became the girl's mentor, teaching her about business, money, and self-worth. The girl listened carefully, asked questions, and learned with hungry eyes. With the woman's guidance, she started building her own small brand. Nothing fancy, just honest work and beautiful creations. Orders grew, her savings grew, and so did her confidence. She started believing that she was more than just a servant. She was a creator, a learner, a fighter. Even though life was still hard and her body was still tired, her heart felt lighter. For the first time in years, she could see a new future, a better one, not just in dreams, but in real steps, real actions. Her world was slowly changing, and she was the one changing it. She kept her success quiet. The rich family still saw her as a maid, but she no longer felt like one inside. She walked with more purpose, spoke with more hope, and smiled more often. Her secret life was no longer just about escaping pain. It was about building something real, something strong. And through it all, she never forgot where she came from. Every scar, every tear, every sleepless night had brought her here. From a dark corner of a big house to a shining path she had carved herself. Her rise was slow, silent, but powerful. She was no longer hiding in the shadows. She was rising from them. She finally did something she had dreamed about for years. She walked out of that big house, not as a maid, but as a young woman ready to start her own life. She didn't have much, just a small bag, a few clothes, and a heart full of dreams. But for the first time, she felt free. No more cold floors, no more shouting voices, no more being treated like she didn't matter. She stepped into the world, scared but strong. She used the money she had saved over the years to rent a tiny room. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. She set up a small table near the window and placed her handmade tools there. That little corner became her office, her studio, her dream space. Every morning she woke up early and worked hard. She made new products, replied to customers online, packed orders, and even delivered some herself. Her business grew faster than she expected. People loved her work because it had heart, it had story, it had truth. Soon, her small brand started getting attention. A local shop asked to display her items. Then, someone wrote a blog post about her. That story reached a local newspaper, and before she knew it, she was being invited for interviews. People were shocked when they heard what she had gone through. They couldn't believe that a girl who once slept on kitchen floors was now a business owner. They called her the girl who rose from dust. But even with all the success, the pain inside her didn't vanish. Every time she saw a father walking hand in hand with his daughter, her chest would tighten. Sometimes she would stop walking, pretend to check her phone, just to hide the tears forming in her eyes. That wound of being thrown away by the one person she loved the most was still fresh. No amount of money or fame could erase it. She smiled in front of cameras, but inside, there was a little girl still asking why her father never believed her. Yet she didn't let that pain break her. Instead, she used it as fuel. She turned her sadness into strength. Every tear she had ever cried became a reason to push harder. Every scar became a reminder that she had survived, and more than survived. She had grown, bloomed, and risen. She started sharing small parts of her story online, not for pity, but to inspire. People connected with her honesty. Girls who had been silenced, girls who had been forgotten, began writing to her, telling her that she gave them hope. And that was when she realized her story wasn't just about business. It was about healing, about showing the world that no matter how deep the pain, you can still rise. Her room slowly became a real office. Her brand got bigger. More hands joined her, not as workers, but as a team. People who believed in her, People who saw her not as a poor servant girl, but as a leader. And even though her journey was full of pain, she never let that pain turn her bitter. She stayed kind, humble, and grateful. She had made it, not just in money, but in strength, in spirit, in heart. She had turned her darkest nights into her brightest mornings. She was no longer the girl who was thrown out. She was the girl who climbed back up, step by step, with nothing but her will. And now, the world didn't just see her, the world respected her. She had earned her name, her place, her power. One ordinary morning, while scrolling through messages and checking her work updates, she came across something that made her freeze. It was a short message from someone in her old neighborhood. Her childhood home, the house where she had once laughed, cried, and eventually been thrown out of, was being sold. Her stepmother was desperate for money. The house that once held so many painful memories was now up for grabs, open to anyone who could afford it. For a moment, her heart stopped. It felt like the past had suddenly knocked on her door. She stared at her screen for a long time. A wave of emotions washed over her. Pain, confusion, even fear. But underneath it all was something stronger. She didn't feel hate or anger. She felt a deep, calm strength. Without telling anyone, she made a few calls, arranged the paperwork, and within a few days, she bought the house. Just like that, the same house where she was once told she didn't belong was now hers. She didn't buy it to get revenge. She didn't want to throw anyone out or show off her success. That wasn't her heart. She bought it for herself, to prove that she had grown, that she had healed, and that she was no longer that little girl crying on the doorstep, begging to be loved. Now she stood on her own feet. Now she had power, choice, and peace. When she visited the house again, it felt strange. The walls looked smaller, the garden more quiet, the rooms more empty than she remembered, but the pain wasn't as sharp anymore. She walked through each room slowly, remembering things. Her mother's gentle voice in the kitchen, her own laughter when her father used to chase her around the living room. She remembered the silence after her mother died, and then the cruelty that followed. Her stepmother was still there during the sale. She looked older, thinner, tired, not the powerful woman who once controlled everything. They barely spoke. The stepmother didn't know what to say. Maybe she felt ashamed, maybe not. But the girl didn't look at her with hate. She simply nodded and moved on. The past didn't deserve her energy anymore. She stood outside the house after signing the final papers, holding the keys in her hand. She looked up at the windows and whispered softly to herself, "I'm not that helpless child anymore." It wasn't for anyone else to hear. It was her own quiet victory. The house that once broke her heart now stood as proof of her strength. Buying the house didn't erase the pain, but it gave her something important: control over her story. It was no longer the place where her dreams ended. It was now the place where she would begin something new. She didn't cry that day. She smiled. Not a loud, proud smile, but a soft, peaceful. She thought about her mother. What would she say if she saw her now? That thought alone gave her strength. She promised in her heart that whatever she did next, it would be something meaningful. This house would not stay stuck in the past. It would become a place of hope, of healing, of new beginnings. She turned and walked away from the house that once pushed her out, knowing she'd return, not as a broken girl, but as someone who had risen far beyond what anyone expected. She didn't need anyone's permission anymore. She had rewritten her story, and this time she was the one holding the pen. She returned to the house slowly, step by step, her heart beating with emotions she couldn't fully name. This time, she didn't feel fear. She didn't feel anger either. She felt strong. Strong in a way she never thought possible when she was just a small girl crying outside that very door. The house looked the same, but she was completely different. She wasn't there to argue or to ask why. She had no need for answers now. She came to show that she had become someone full of power, grace, and peace. When the door opened, her father stood there, but he didn't look like the man she once knew. He was older now, thinner, weaker, and his eyes were tired. The moment he saw her, he froze. For a second he couldn't speak. Then tears filled his eyes and his legs gave out. He sank into the nearest chair, crying softly. He couldn't believe she had come back. Maybe he thought she would never forgive him. Maybe he didn't think he deserved it. And maybe he was right. But she didn't come back for revenge. She came back for closure, for peace, and for the promise she had once made to her mother. The stepmother stood nearby, completely silent. Her face had no expression. Shock maybe, or guilt. Or perhaps she had never expected this day to come. She said nothing, just stared, watching the girl who had once been thrown out now standing tall in the very home she was forced to leave. The girl didn't yell. She didn't remind them of the pain they had caused. Instead, she spoke gently, telling her father that she had bought the house and that she wanted to care for him now, not because he had earned it, but because her heart was still kind. Deep down, she remembered the man he used to be, before everything changed. And because of the love her mother had once shown her, she decided to do what was right. In the days that followed, she looked after him. She made sure he had food, medicine, and comfort. She sat by his side when he was too weak to walk, listened when he wanted to talk, and helped him feel peace in his final days. There were moments when he tried to say sorry. Sometimes he would hold her hand and cry. And even though the pain he caused would never fully disappear, she forgave him. Not because it was easy, but because she needed to let go and move on. The house slowly started to feel different. It was no longer just a place of old memories and pain. It became a place of healing. She filled it with warmth, light, and care. Not just for her father, but for herself. She spent quiet evenings in the same rooms where she once felt invisible, now feeling proud of how far she had come. Her stepmother stayed silent most of the time. She watched everything quietly, as if realizing that the power she once had was gone. The girl never asked her for anything. She didn't want apologies or explanations. She had already outgrown all of that. Her life had moved forward, and this moment was not about the past anymore. It was about showing that no matter what was done to her, it didn't break her. She had promised her mother that she would never lose her kindness, that no matter how much hurt she faced, she would rise with grace. And now, she had kept that promise. She returned, not with hatred, but with love, not with anger, but with calm strength. And in doing so, she didn't just find peace, she gave it. As her father slowly faded, he did so with her beside him. And when the day finally came, she held his hand until the end. It was quiet, gentle, full of forgiveness. She had done what many could not. She had taken a broken past and turned it into something strong, beautiful, and whole. The house that once brought her so much pain was no longer just a memory of sadness. Now, it stood as a strong reminder of how far she had come. The same place where she had been rejected, hurt, and thrown out was now fully hers. But she didn't want to keep it as it was. She wanted to turn the pain into purpose. She decided to fix the house, not just for herself, but for others like her. Girls who had gone through the same kind of hurt. Girls who had nowhere to go, no one to care for them. With time, she started renovating everything. The broken walls were repaired. The dark rooms were filled with light. New paint covered the old scars. What was once cold and silent now felt warm and alive. She worked hard, choosing every detail with love. Each room was made to feel safe, soft, and full of hope. Slowly, the house changed, from a place of tears to a home of healing. But she didn't stop there. She opened the doors to girls who needed help, young girls who had suffered abuse, who had been abandoned, just like she once was. She gave them shelter, food, clothes, but more than that, she gave them love, care, and the belief that they could rise again. She talked to them, listened to them, and told them, "I know how it feels, but you are not alone." Her story began to spread. People started talking about the girl who had nothing, who was treated like a servant, who was left in the dark, but who rose up, learned, worked, and became someone. She wasn't just a businesswoman now. She was a symbol of strength. Newspapers, magazines, and even TV channels started sharing her journey. People called her the girl who rose from dust. But to her, it wasn't about fame. It was about showing the world that broken girls can build strong futures. She inspired so many people, not just the girls she helped, but strangers who had never met her. Her strength gave others hope. They looked at her and saw not a victim, but a warrior. Someone who didn't give up, even when the whole world turned away. Someone who turned her scars into stars. The house became more than just a building. It became a new beginning for many. Girls who had lost everything now had a place to sleep, to dream, and to heal. They learned skills, went back to school, and slowly started to smile again. All because one girl, who once had nothing, chose not to hate, but to help. And every time she walked through the halls of that house, she remembered everything. The pain, the silence, the cold nights, but also the promise she had made to herself. that she would make something of her life, and she did. The house that once tried to break her became the very place that made her unbreakable. Now, when people talk about her, they don't just speak of her success, they speak of her heart. They see the courage it took to come back, to forgive, and to build something better. And they understand. She was never just a girl who suffered. She was always a light waiting to shine.